Let's talk about the fall of 2025. A massive federal immigration operation came down on Chicago, and it sparked a huge constitutional crisis. We're talking City Hall versus the White House. It brought daily life in the city to a grinding halt. Suddenly, arrests, raids, and protests were the new normal. So, what exactly happened here? How did the city fight back? And maybe most importantly, what does this whole thing tell us about the balance of power in America? Okay, to really get what this conflict was all about, we have to start with how the federal government explained its mission. What was the official story? The Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, was pretty blunt about it. They said the whole point was to go after criminal, illegal aliens. Their argument was that Chicago's sanctuary laws were basically rolling out the welcome mat for dangerous people, because those laws limit how much local cops can help federal immigration agents.
Now, the operation wasn't just given some random code name. It was given a really powerful and very emotional justification. By naming it after Katie Abraham, DHS framed the entire mission as a direct response to a terrible tragedy that they tied right back to those sanctuary policies.
So that was the official story. But it didn't take long for that story to clash with what was actually happening on the ground. Let's take a look at how this operation really played out on the streets of Chicago.
The Department of Homeland Security, they were touting a big number. They claimed they had made over 1,500 arrests in the Chicago area.
Now that number, it quickly became a huge point of debate. Because when you started to look closer at the data and listen to the reports coming from the streets, a very different picture started to emerge. It didn't quite line up with the official story of only targeting criminal aliens. And here's why. A CBS News investigation found a pretty major discrepancy. See, that federal data for the arrests, it wasn't just for Chicago. Turns out it covered the entire 6-state region of the ICE Chicago field office. That's a much, much wider net.
And the news reports? They were filled with stories that just didn't fit the official narrative. We're talking about a tamale vendor in back of the yards, rideshare drivers at O'Hare, even workers at a homeless shelter being picked up. And get this, a police officer from Hanover Park, who was federally authorized to work and carry a gun, was arrested. There were also tons of reports of U.S. citizens getting detained for no reason.
As this whole thing went on, the tactics got, well, a lot more intense. It started in September with raids on stores and street vendors, but it escalated fast. By early October, federal agents were using tear gas and pepper balls on crowds. A CBS News reporter was shot with a pepper ball just for checking on a situation. And then people started seeing armed Customs and Border Protection boats patrolling the Chicago River. So you can imagine this aggressive federal presence led to an immediate and really widespread backlash from pretty much everyone, residents, community groups, and local officials.
And the resistance came in all shapes and sizes. You had daily and often pretty tense protests happening on the streets. But the fight also moved into the courtroom. A whole swathe of lawsuits got filed, and they led to some major court orders that really challenged the Fed's authority. Even the judiciary started to take notice. In a huge move, U.S. District Judge Sarah Ellis ordered federal agents to start wearing body cameras. And she made it really clear she was seeing exactly what everyone else was seeing, saying, quote, "I live in Chicago, I'm not blind, right?"
Local governments started pushing back with some really specific actions. The top judge in Cook County banned ICE from making arrests at courthouses. The mayor of Broadview actually sued to get a riot fence taken down from a public street. A Chicago alderwoman was arrested just for asking agents at a hospital if they had a warrant. And then Mayor Brandon Johnson signed an executive order to keep ICE from using any city property, which set the stage for the biggest legal battle of all, a lawsuit to stop the president from sending in the National Guard.
So here's the crucial point. This wasn't just a few local skirmishes anymore. This thing exploded into a direct, high-stakes showdown between the state of Illinois and the White House. And it got personal. President Trump went on social media and posted that both Chicago's mayor and Illinois' governor should be in jail because they were, in his view, failing to protect federal officers. Well, Governor Pritzker fired right back, and he did not mince words. When the president tried to federalize the Illinois National Guard, which basically means taking control of the state's own troops, Pritzker called it outrageous and un-American.
And that kicked off this frantic legal battle. The president ordered 700 troops to Chicago. The state and the city immediately sued. A district judge blocked it, an appeals court agreed with the block, so finally, the administration took the fight all the way to the Supreme Court, asking for emergency permission to send the troops in anyway.
Okay, let's zoom out for a second, because everything that happened in Chicago, it raises some really profound questions that go way beyond just one city or one operation. We're talking about stuff that touches on the fundamental rights of every single person living in the U.S.
At the absolute core of all those legal challenges was a basic constitutional principle. As the ACLU often points out, the U.S. Constitution gives rights to everyone inside the country's borders. It doesn't matter what your immigration status is. And that idea was the foundation for almost every argument made against the tactics we saw.
Ultimately, this whole showdown in Chicago forced a national conversation. When a local community and its elected leaders don't agree with a federal action, who gets the final say? The events of fall 2025 definitely did not give us an easy answer, and it leaves a really critical question about the balance of power that, honestly, all of us have to think about.